Alright, so I kind of messed up and forgot to export the files off of my camera before I deleted them. So, yeah, post commentary for this one. Credo's probably asleep right now, probably for work and shit. So, not really much happens at the beginning. So, most of it's going to be sped up bullshit, but yeah. Last time, Credo did get the Uji Katana from the dude, which is definitely a good thing to have. The Uji Katana is a great sword to have right at the beginning of the game, especially since Kratos going for the Dex build. The Uji Katana is definitely a good one to use right off the bat, and it actually gets put to really good use much later. There are actually some feats that he pulls off that I'm actually surprised. Now, the thing about Dark Souls 3 is that grinding is kind of hard because right away you have to grind 20,000 souls in order to get the key to that tower, and souls are not as generous in this game as they were in Dark Souls 2. So, grinding for souls is a little bit harder. But after you unlock that tower, you do get the Silver Serpent Ring, which, boosts your soul count whenever you beat an enemy, and it's still, soul grinding is still hard, even with the ring on. But I suppose that's pretty much how Dark Souls 3, or all the Dark Souls games kind of start out. You have to grind for a good amount of time, like at least an hour, in order to make your character somewhat good before... I mean, I suppose Credo could just go on ahead, but it's really scary when you progress through the game and you're trying to carry so many souls and they're so hard to gather up. Yeah, Credo was trying out moves. Lots of weapons have special moves in this game. In contrast to the first two Souls games, a lot of the weapons have their own special moves, and a lot of them are hold left trigger and then attack with right bumper. Moves kind of like that. The Uji Katana has a move called the Iato, which is when you just take it out of your sheath and swing with it. Oh, and as a dex build, it is also very handy to have a bow and arrow with you. Or a bow, or a crossbow. I would usually prefer a bow because a bow actually scales with dexterity, and pretty much almost all builds have dexterity, and you can actually, well, yeah, I'm not sure what exactly the reason why I don't like to use a crossbow is, in comparison to the bow and arrow. I'll have to try out a crossbow one time and see what the... Oh, yeah, because I don't think you can actually aim with the crossbow. You can just target people. They might have changed that in this game. That might have just been Dark Souls 1. But the thing about crossbows is that they don't scale with anything. So if you have a strength or a dex build, it's probably better to go with a bow and arrow. I usually go with the bow and arrow on all the builds that I play just because it's a very handy thing to have a bow and arrow just on the side to lure enemies over to you, or to just get something that's way out of your range. Even as a sorcerer, which is the build that I play all the time in my Souls games, it's there's range. There is limited range. Now, I have no fucking clue why Credo did not choose to heal here, but he definitely could have afforded to do that. And he pays the price for it. So I guess another thing I can touch on is how the builds work in this game. I liked Dark Souls 2 in one sense more than both Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 2, I felt like you can make your character right away at the beginning of the game, because it gives you so many souls and it gives you so many levels. You can make whatever build you want right away. It's a process when it comes to the other two Souls games. But I do feel like Dark Souls 3 is much more refined in the manner of builds. I just wish that they would have kept some, useful, Hex build. Hexing, where it's I guess it's called Dark Sorcery now, or there's a Dark Cleric too, but it's hard to explain with Dark Souls 3. It's there's Dark, but you can only use one, and it's Dark doesn't... And Dark isn't really good in this game. Like, they didn't... they took away one of the things that made the Dark build in Dark Souls 2 great, and that's the Dark Orb. It's replaced with something similar called the Deep Soul, but it's much slower, and it's really not worth it. You might as well just use the Sorcerer build. Like, at least in Dark Souls 2, there was a reason for you doing a Hex build. Yeah, there aren't a lot of dark weapons in this game, although I suppose it's more of a way to encourage dark fire, because this game actually gets pretty heavy with like bosses and enemies that use dark and fire, which is definitely a hybrid build that works since both of them scale with intelligence and faith. Yeah. And there's a usual Dark Souls 3 death for you. Get outnumbered by a bunch of enemies. But like I said, Dark Souls 3 kind of did refine some of the builds in a way. Like, for instance, the sharp gems and the hard gems that let you increase the scaling of the weapon. Like Sharp. Sharp, for instance, lets you increase the dexterity scaling of a weapon. Didn't quite have that in the previous two Souls games, which we really definitely could have used, but hey, it is what it is. I do really think that was neat that they added that in the game. About sorcery is that there's crystal weapons now. Crystal scales with sorcery, and unlike Dark Souls 1, crystal is not its own thing where like the weapon is just stronger and then it breaks and you can never repair it. It's... yeah. Oh, this guy's fun. Now, this dragon here is kind of weird because when he blows fire on the top platform, like, you can get hurt by just being within like 20 feet of the flame sprite, but when he breathes fire down the middle, it's like you could just walk around and not get hurt, and it's like... Alright, and now Credo is about to fight an enemy that, in the same respect as the Black Knights, is the first enemy he's going to fight where he's not really in control of the situation. Or, you know, not in control. That's one thing that Vicus brought up when I watched his Dark Souls Let's Play, where it's just like, at the beginning of Dark Souls, you're fighting all these puny-ass enemies, and it feels like you're in control, but then when you face the Black Knight, he's more in control of the fight than you are. And only through pure wit and tenacity can you overcome an enemy like that. Credo manages to beat the enemy first try, and that happens a lot in this game. There are so many doors in this game that only open from one side, and it's very annoying. And I do not know what he was thinking there. That was very foolish. Yeah. I guess one bright side to this is that the footage is sped up, and it's like you don't need to really watch Dark Souls 3 or any Dark Souls in normal motion, because this is all times 2 speed, and it still feels kind of slow, you know. This is kind of how I edit videos too. I usually speed it up because I can't spend 2 hours recording and then 2 more hours editing and then 2 more hours rendering and then 2 more hours uploading. It's like I gotta cut some corners, otherwise I'm just not gonna get anything done. A lot less time in my hands than I had in the past. But that's life for you. Life gets life flies faster when you get older. All right, now here comes up Kratos' first fight with a mimic. Mimics are still just as deadly in this game as they are in the first two Souls games. They're just a pain in the ass to fight. Except in this game, their hitboxes actually kind of make much more sense. Whereas opposed to Dark Souls 2, where you could be completely behind the Mimic, and when it lunges forward, it just catches you in its grip. And actually, you can roll away from a Mimic if you start to open it up, and you see, oh shit. Yeah, I didn't think that was a thing you could do with Mimics. Like, you could roll away before you open the chest completely, because that happened to me one time, where I was like, oh shit, those are teeth. And I rolled away and actually got away with it. And that fall could have been much worse than it actually is. Now, Lloyd's Talisman still exists in this game, but it's called, like, the Undead Hunter Charm, because with lore behind it, I think it's like All-Father Lloyd was apparently like a fraud or something, so yeah. I don't know too many details about that. Dark Souls lore is still very blurry to me. And killing him gets you the Deep Battle Axe, which is useless to you unless you are going with the dark build, which even then, it's still not that great of a weapon right away. Yeah, I guess to explain it, dark weaponry kind of has a different tier to it. Actually, there are different tiers to sorcery as well. So it's like sorcery has has another ascension called simple. And this is Credo dying. Sorcery has another ascension called Simple, which not only increases the scaling with intelligence, but it also heals your magic gradually as you have the weapon equipped. It's not worth forsaking the Crystal Ascension for, because the Crystal Ascension does do more damage and increases the scaling more, so yeah, the magic boost honestly isn't that much. It's really only for if you need to stall or take your time. And then you might as well just whip it out and just recover some magic. I do really like that they brought the magic bar back. Like, it's like they had it in Demon Souls. 2 Souls it was gone, and they replaced it with the use system, and I absolutely hated the use system. Because it's like I only get, like, what? 4 Crystal Soul Spears, and that was it. In this game, you can have as many spells as long as you have magic. And you don't necessarily need Ashen Estus Flask to restore your magic. Alright, so Credo kind of had to be careful at the beginning here with equipping some stuff, because he was skirting the threshold for equip load, which is still 70%, I believe, until you start fat rolling. Yeah, he ends up later upgrading his vitality to make up for it. Yeah, it doesn't matter what build you play, you kind of have to up your vitality just a little bit. I mean, I guess not. I mean, yeah, I guess so, because there are some weapons that, even for like sorcerer builds and stuff, it's like, they're very heavy. Credo should have seen this coming a mile away. He should have seen that coming. Now Kratos going with the Dex build this time, and I think it'll definitely work out for him. You remember from Dark Souls 2, he was actually getting really tired of the tank build and just pretty much just dodging and attacking, and sometimes the bosses were made specifically, okay, he made his way back to Firelink, and he's going to upgrade his dexterity and his strength. But yeah, he was getting pretty tired of the strength in the tank build of just blocking and attacking, which some of the bosses were actually kind of made to just screw over that strategy altogether. So he eventually had to, like, I kept pushing him in Dark Souls 2 to get different armor and to try new things and to try dodge rolling and stuff, but it's hard to do that in Dark Souls 2 with the adaptability stat. In this game, you know, there's no adaptability, so You learn to dodge roll. It's like, hey, yeah, you learned how to dodge. Those are the invincibility frames you get all the time. So, yeah. Dodging's always been my go-to strategy. I don't even use a shield in the Dark Souls games when I play, just because it's like, shit can't hurt you if it doesn't hit you. So hopefully this will be good for Credo, because I remember that tank build forced him into situations that were just really difficult, like the Fume Knight. The Fume Knight was kind of when I realized, okay, this build isn't going to work anymore. Okay, and I'm pretty sure Credo looked this shit up, but the oily snake guys are highly vulnerable to fire. Now, at the time we were playing this, I asked him, you looked this up, didn't you? How did you know they were weak to fire? And he was like, oh, I kind of just threw my fire bombs and hope for the best, and I still don't believe that. I'm pretty sure he looked that shit up. Maybe I could be completely wrong. Alright, so the crystal lizards are harder to kill. But if they end up killing themselves like that, the items come to you. You don't have to actually pick up the items. I remember actually going to pick up the items was problematic in Dark Souls 2, because if you ended up like dying before you could pick it up, like they don't respawn. Hashtag reasons why Dark Souls 2 is worse than the other two games. I still like Dark Souls 2 because it has its own charm to it, but there were still some things that made it bad. There were still some things that made... Oh, that was nice to watch. But that dude's still alive. Okay. There were a lot of things that made Dark Souls 1 bad, too. Like, for instance, you didn't get the Lord Vessel until, like, halfway through the game. And most of Dark Souls 1's gameplay is spent going from point A to point B. Alright, so what I actually learned about this game pretty recently is that sometimes you can get Estus flasks from enemies. Like, upon getting their souls, you can also get like extra Estus flasks. You can also get extra, or all your Estus flasks refilled, or at least one of them refilled, if you leave a message in the game and it gets rated. Yeah, this is definitely a thing that I noticed a lot in Kratos playthroughs, because like it was... Oh yeah, that shield still does stupid chip damage. And I believe, yep, that is where he ended off, because that was where he was just like, okay, I'm going to go back for my souls, and he lost his souls, so it's like, oh shit. Well, no point in doing that anymore. But hey, yeah, thanks for watching this part. Next part will actually have commentary with Credo.